though I was not educated. We were 8 siblings, and one thing that he emphasized to all of us was that we should learn as much as we can, educate ourselves as much as we can. And that's what he did to all the 8 siblings that we were there. So in our family, where my father has 7 brothers, we were the only family where every one of the siblings graduated out of college.
I saw your father's picture there, and it was a wonderful old picture. I am sure today he would be very, very proud. What would you say to him today if he was sitting next to you?
I think a lot of qualities that I imbibed, the basic qualities that I imbibed of honesty, loyalty, these have come from the basic principles that he laid down and what I observed out of him. He was fairly successful, not very successful, but stuck to a lot of principles. And I think those are the things that I tried to follow as much as possible, not 100%, but as much as possible, I tried to follow that.
What about your mother? What was her role in your life?
She put me into a lot of discipline. I was...
Which is probably good for you.
I was the eldest of the boys, so, from that perspective, I was, pampered a lot by my father and my mother. But at many times, if I went a little astray, she was the one who put me back on track.
Okay. One of the early stories you shared with us is that you were having too much fun and you were fooling around at school, and you ended up failing in class. What did that feel, and how did that change you?
Actually, when I was in school, all my teachers and the principal and my friends always thought that I was a good student, but I never actually academically did well in class because I had too much of attention, which was, diversified into other things other than studies. So I would generally manage to scrape through the class every time, and it was the last minute study that I did. I remember that it was in my 8th standard that I had to fail the class, and I failed in 2 subjects and by 2 marks. And my sister and my dad would plead to the principal to allow me to resit for the exam. I think not allowing me to resit for the exam was the best thing that happened to me. The next term, when I repeated the class, I did brilliantly well. I came second in the class, and I failed in a subject called algebra, and the next semester, I scored 99 marks in the subject.
What shifted inside you? Was that a turning point in the early stage of your life?
That's right. From then on, I took life very seriously.
Okay.
I took my career very seriously. And yes, of course, there were times the temptation came in, but then it was for a short time. It would get back to track, when I realized that, well, this is not what's my goal in life.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've all failed in some exams and so on and so have I. And it takes a very big man, a very humble man, to be able to admit in public that they managed to screw up and bounce back from there. So congratulations on that. Thank you. Moving forward, you graduated. You tell us about your first job. I mean, it seems that you just skated through life. It just seemed very easy. I'm just joking.
Yeah. In college, I was not the guy who came the first in the class. I was probably in the first 3 or 4 in my batch. And we were all, those days, engineers were, getting jobs for engineers was very difficult. Luckily, I went for an internship in a company called Bush Radio, which belonged to my uncle's friend. And that two months of internship gave me a lot of insight about the radio and the electronic industry. When I graduated of college, and just even before I could get my graduation certificate, I got an interview in this company called Murphy. And because I had interned in Bush and had a lot of insights into the production and the quality control, I just got the job even without getting even submitting my mark sheet to the company.
And how did you find the opportunity to come to Dubai? Because apparently it was very random. You saw an ad and you moved on from there.
My stint in Murphy was a very big learning process. The 6 months that I spent into training into the various departments was very enlightening. So, I picked up a lot of, what I didn't pick up in the 5 years of my education in the engineering college was picked up in the 6 months that I was in Murphy in the training. Then I was moved into the marketing department and handled various marketing roles. I think one thing that I did differently from the other trainees who were there was that whenever any kind of job came in, I would just grab it. And that helped me to learn a lot, whether it was coordinating with the research and development, or coordinating with the quality control, coordinating with the people on the production line, both in terms of my results as well as my learnings were outstanding in the 2.5 years that I spent in Murphy. The job in Dubai came very much by accident. I never kind of anticipated to come to Dubai, though my dad had a friend in Dubai and who, in fact, volunteered to arrange a visa for me. I'm talking of those days when Dubai was like 50,000. The population of Dubai was 50 to 60,000
It was
people.
1977, 78.
1977, 78.
Yes, yeah.
6 months before that.
Right.
And I said, no, thank you very much. I'm not interested in coming to Dubai. And one fine day, I was visiting one of my dealers in Bombay. There's a place called Strand Cinema. And there used to be a dealer, was a hi-fi dealer, and I went to visit him. And he was a little busy in a meeting. And I was asked to wait for 45 minutes till he could see me. So I used those 45 minutes to go to a recruiting company which was close by. And went there and, in fact, wrote my biodata with my own hand. It was a handwritten biodata. And within the next 10 minutes, I was in for an interview. And the next 45 minutes, by the time I came out, I was selected for the job.
It's very interesting that great leaders grab the opportunities when they get it. And each one of us in our lives have these opportunities. And when we look back, I'm sure there were these turning points. And I've had that same in my life too. You came to Dubai, you joined Jumbo. Jumbo was doing really well, market leaders with Sony. Was that good training for you or bad training?
Again, even Jumbo was a very good learning curve for me. In fact, I would say the first 5 years, the 2.5 years that I spent in Murphy, and the 2.5 that I spent in Jumbo, really made me complete sales, marketing, and a techno-commercial kind of candidate.
Right.
And I had the good fortune of handling the Sony business, which those days was booming. And I was handling the video side of the business, which was almost half the turnover of the total company business, which was 7 different business groups. So I really was privileged to have the job.
Some of the difficult moments when you moved from there, from Sony into Eros at the early stages, it was a small company, came in as a marketing manager. What were your immediate challenges? Because you came to a very small, from a market leader like Sony and Jumbo, you came to a small niche organization with Hitachi, I think it was.
Actually, when I was at Jumbo, though the Sony role was very satisfying initially, but I really couldn't find a place for myself in the organization, partly because of some politics that was being played around. So I always believe that any kind of politics only creates negativity in an organization. I was not very comfortable in that kind of situation. Though in terms of career, my growth was continuing. I got a promotion in a year and a half. So from a career perspective, it was going great. But I couldn't see myself next 5 years or 10 years in that organization. And while this was happening, I used to visit the market and look at the number of brands that were performing and make my own judgment as to what could be done with these brands. And I saw one brand that was very underrepresented, and that was Hitachi. And it was by coincidence that 2 months later that somebody, was talking to me and told me that there is a job availability and why don't you, go and speak to the gentleman there, So I came to see Mr. Badri. And I think it was a 5 minutes interview, and they were so overwhelmed with, because coming from a company like Jumbo, which had a representative of Sony, I was not asked many questions, and the job was straight put into my lap.
Okay, so fast forward from there, if you take the next 10 years of your early career when you were shaping the Al Badri Group and building Eros, are there some early stories that you would like to share with us on Hitachi and on your early development days before we move forward?
Actually, the challenges were many because we were a small group, and though my designation was a marketing manager, I had to do probably everything in the organization. We were like 6 people. So whether it was, getting the invoices ready, sometimes, we would have shortage of drivers. So we would put, some of the goods in our own van and, deliver to the dealer. So it was a, everything, you couldn't say that my role is of a marketing manager and a sales manager, therefore this is not my job.
And those learnings, are they helping you these days?
Of course, because
you learn the whole system.
I learned the system, and in fact, the system at that time was not very perfected. So the learnings that I had in Jumbo of systems were then replicated in Eros. And of course, over a period of time, these were, of course, refined. They're not the same as they were at those days, but of course, that helped us to.
Tell us about the first Gulf War. Apparently, that was a very interesting opportunity for you in 1991.
Yes, I very distinctly remember that when the first Gulf War took place, everybody in Dubai was very nervous because nobody knew what was the impact of the war to Dubai, but they definitely thought that the impact would be very negative. So principals were not ready to ship goods out. They, in fact, forced us to cancel orders. That was the first time when we saw the principals not putting pressure on agents. Dealers were not ready to, not very confident of the business. And the scenario was very, very negative. Under these circumstances, staff wanted to leave. And we at Eros found that there was some opportunity that was available. Number one, we saw a lot of Kuwaitis who came from Kuwait and settled down in Sharjah. So they needed all the kind of appliances, the televisions. Also at that point of time, there were a lot of international force was here. So there were a lot of Italians, a lot of French people, a lot of Germans, a lot of Americans here. And they were potential customers for electronic products because Dubai was a free port and goods were available very cheap here. So principals were not ready to ship unless we didn't pay them the money. So we worked out, we said, well, this was an opportunity that's available. How can we tap this opportunity? We talked to one of our shipping lines, which we did regular business with, American President Lines, and they told us that they could bring the goods safely into Dubai via the Khurfakhan route, and they would not have so much a problem because they were, along with the goods, they were also bringing a lot of military equipment, and so they were being very well guarded by the American warships. That helps us to bring goods to Khurfakhan. So in history, we had to pay 15 days in advance for the goods. And the goods, Hitachi was very reluctant to ship, but on our persistence that it was no risk to them, they shipped the goods. We saw that everybody in the market cut down their imports. And while that was happening, the market here was booming because there was shortage of goods. We had these Kuwaitis who came and bought all kind of electronics. We had the Marines. Some of my colleagues here will tell you that our credit period, because the market was risky, we reduced it from 60 to 7 days. And we had dealers paying us in 7 days. And that was probably the year that our profit almost doubled as compared to the previous year.
Do you think that was your turning point as far as Eros Group is concerned, or was there other things beyond that?
No, we actually, when we started, our base was very small. So the first few years we grew almost at 100%.
Right.
But this was one of the turning points during the years when, a risk was supposed to be taken. We took that risk and it paid off very well.
Okay. Talking about risk, are you a risk taker?
I generally tend to take risks which are calculated risks. So I don't take blind risk, but something which is calculated. And again, some of my colleagues here will vouch for this. 2007-8, when we had the recession in Dubai, the buzzword was retrenchment. How many staff can we cut? And so we had all our competition talking about cutting 30% staff, cutting 25% of the staff. And even if you went to the cars showrooms, they would say, well, we're going to downsize. We, as management, sat down and put our heads together and said, what should we do? So the question was, how long is this recession going to last? Is it going to be 3 months? Is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be 1 year? If it's going to last 6 months, can we sustain the current staff level? If we retrench, is staff going to be demotivated? We said if the retrenchment, if the recession gets off in 6 months' time, it'll take us another 6 months to recruit these people back again.
Yeah.
And under such scenarios, principals will not wait. If we are not able to deliver, they will have somebody else to deliver. So we took a conscious decision, not a single staff was retrenched. The calculated risk was that even in the worst scenario, can we break even for the 6 months? And the answer was, everybody, consensus, yes. We went ahead and we had record sales that year.
It's actually very interesting that 3 or 4 of our leaders, our guests, did exactly the same thing. Dr. B.R. Shetty did exactly the same thing. Rizwan Sajan did exactly the same thing. There were 3 or 4 of these people who actually, at the time of extreme stress, I think Paris Gallery, they also did exactly the same thing, did not retrench at all, and they bounced back twice as hard, so congratulations. I think this is a sign of greatness, and what I wanted to find from you, Deepak, is in these early sort of first phase of your professional career, what was the secret of your success?